A lawsuit meant to destroy the Daily Mail didn't just collapse, it detonated in Prince Harry's hands, exposing everything he built his story on and leaving behind a financial and personal wreckage that no one inside the palace is rushing to clean up.
The Daily Mail are pursuing Prince Harry for unlimited legal costs, and they're looking for $13.3 million from the claimants up front. And that is just the beginning.
You're a fucking idiot.
But this is probably the biggest failure of Harry's life since stepping down as a member of the British royal family. And it's going to cost him significantly financially. It's going to hurt him and his family.
The Associated Newspapers, which owns the Daily Mail, is demanding £34.5 million, what is that, about $50 million in America, for their legal costs. Now, the celebrities, including Harry and Elton, had legal insurance.
Begins like a warning whispered too late. A case built with confidence, pushed forward with certainty, carried like a mission, but somewhere between belief and reality, something snapped. A number £34.5 million doesn't just sit on paper, it crushes. 14 days to pay. Not a suggestion, not a negotiation, a deadline. And in the middle of it all, a silence from the one place that once solved everything, family. His father refused. His family stepped back. And then the detail that no one expected to matter became the most dangerous piece of evidence of all his own Instagram posts. The very thing meant to control the narrative quietly dismantled it.
He's a fool, and he's lost millions of pounds on this fatuous and pointless case against the press. It's a great day for the free press, not a good day for idiot members of the royal family. Bad luck.
There was a moment, maybe several, where everything could have stopped. That split second where instinct whispers caution, where advisors lean in, voices low but urgent, saying, don't do this. The evidence isn't there, the case won't hold. But confidence can be louder than caution. And when confidence turns into certainty, it becomes something else entirely. A blind spot, a refusal to step back, a decision to push forward not because the ground is solid, but because turning around feels like losing. And so he didn't stop. He escalated. He doubled down. And every step forward quietly narrowed the path behind him. He believed it would work, not casually, completely. That truth would carry him. That the courtroom would become a stage where everything finally made sense, where every claim would land, every argument would stick, and the Daily Mail would fall apart under scrutiny. That vindication wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. But belief doesn't change evidence. And when the judge sat, listened, read, and absorbed everything presented, the outcome didn't just disappoint, it erased. 97 allegations.
For 97 allegations of phone hacking, illegal information gathering, criminality against 40 Daily Mail journalists, all of whom had to go into the dock. And all of them protested their innocence. And the judge said, all very impressive. When it came to verdict day, the judge threw out, almost contemptuously, every single one of those 97 allegations.
Not reduced, not partially accepted, completely dismissed, zero credibility. That phrase doesn't just end a case, it defines it. Not one claim stood, not one piece of evidence held. It wasn't a narrow defeat or a technical failure. It was total, absolute, the kind of ruling that doesn't leave room for interpretation or recovery. And in that moment, everything built over years, arguments, narratives, public positioning collapsed in one clean, decisive judgment. No ambiguity, no sympathy, just finality. And then came the realization that made it heavier. This wasn't sudden. The warnings were there. The risks weren't hidden. The odds were known. And yet the path was chosen anyway, because sometimes the hardest truth isn't what happened, it's knowing it could have been avoided.
And that's where it's fell apart. And I think they've rather got involved in, it's almost starting something and feeling you can't stop. And I think it's a hard task to accept that something's not right and pull out and cut your losses early on, especially when you've got the legal teams that are perhaps giving the advice that, look, everything looks okay.
Followed wasn't just legal fallout. It was personal unraveling, because the cost isn't abstract, it's calculated. £34.5 million isn't just a number, it's pressure measured in time, in urgency, in consequences that don't pause. Insurance covers part of it, $16.2 million, but that gap, that remaining $18 million, sits there like a shadow that won't move. move. And the timeline? Brutal. 14 days for a portion that alone feels impossible. Every day ticking down, not quietly, but loudly, relentlessly, and behind the scenes, something shifts. Assets don't just sit, they move. Decisions get rushed. Things get sold that weren't meant to be sold. Not because of strategy, but because of necessity. Because when time compresses like this, options disappear, and the reality that once felt distant becomes immediate. Then comes the part no one inside that courtroom could deliver, but everyone outside it understood. The approach to King Charles. Not speculation, a meeting, a request, help, support, something to soften what was coming. And King Charles listened, understood completely, saw the scale, the stakes, the consequences, and still said no. Not hesitation, not delay, a clear refusal. And that moment quiet as it may have been echoed louder than the verdict itself. Because it wasn't just about money, it was about distance, about lines that had been drawn long before this case reached its conclusion. And suddenly, the silence around him wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. The palace didn't react. The family didn't step forward. No statements, no gestures, just space. Strategic, intentional space that said more than words ever could. But the most unsettling part, it wasn't the money. It wasn't even the rejection. It was the contradiction, small, almost invisible details that started connecting into something much bigger. Claims of danger, of constant threat, of needing protection. And then posts, locations shared, movements revealed, moments broadcast openly. And once those details were seen together, they stopped looking like isolated choices and started forming a pattern that didn't align, a narrative that didn't hold. And when that pattern reached the courtroom, it didn't just weaken the case, it reshaped it entirely. Because what happens when the evidence you present is quietly undone by the life you publicly show? What happens when the story you tell doesn't match the trail you leave behind? The judge saw it, the public saw it, and once seen, it couldn't be unseen. And just when it felt like the damage had already reached its peak, something even more unsettling began to unfold because the fallout didn't stay contained inside the courtroom, it spread outward, quietly dismantling everything Prince Harry had built beyond it. Opportunities didn't just slow down, they vanished. Projects that once looked solid suddenly became uncertain. Platforms that had welcomed him began creating distance. And not through loud announcements, but through silence, delays, and quiet withdrawals that spoke volumes without saying anything directly. The Netflix project that once promised a new chapter paused, then quietly shelved. The Spotify partnership that was already under pressure faded into irrelevance. Speaking engagements that once came with prestige and massive payouts suddenly canceled, postponed, or simply never confirmed again. It wasn't one thing collapsing, it was everything at once, like a chain reaction triggered by a single moment that exposed too much, too clearly, because every one of those opportunities relied on something fragile credibility. And once that cracked, nothing held. And then the financial pressure returned heavier than before, because now it wasn't just about paying what was owed, it was about figuring out how to survive after losing the very streams that could have paid it. The timing couldn't have been worse. A massive legal bill demanding immediate attention while income sources disappeared in real time. It's not just a crisis, it's a trap. The one where every move forward costs something and every delay makes it worse. But underneath all of this, something more personal began to surface. Because while the world focused on the numbers, on the verdict, on the spectacle of it all, the real weight of it landed somewhere else entirely. Archie and Lilibet didn't choose any of this. They didn't sit in courtrooms. They didn't make legal arguments. They didn't decide to push forward when warnings were given. But they're the ones standing closest to the consequences now, feeling the shift without fully understanding it, sensing something has changed even if no one explains it. And the contrast, impossible to ignore, sits right beside it. Same family, same history, same pressures, but completely different outcomes. William took a different path, faced similar challenges, similar scrutiny, similar opportunities to fight back and chose not to. Not because the situation was easier, but because the response was different. While one path moved toward confrontation, the other moved toward control, quietly building instead of publicly battling. And now those choices stand side by side, impossible to separate, impossible not to compare. Because look at what stability looks like. Support from Catherine, alignment with King Charles, a structure that protects, reinforces, and strengthens, a future that feels secure, planned, and steady. And then look at the other side: distance, silence, uncertainty. a future that suddenly feels unpredictable, where every next step depends on solving a problem that's already overwhelming. And then comes the detail that turns everything from failure into something far more complicated. The realization that this wasn't just a legal miscalculation, it was a narrative that couldn't hold under scrutiny. The claim of constant threat, of needing protection, of living under pressure from unseen dangers, and yet at the same time a public trail that told a completely different story. Locations shared openly, movements documented, moments revealed in real time. It's not one contradiction, it's a pattern. And patterns are dangerous because once they're recognized, they can't be ignored. The courtroom saw it, the public saw it, and once that connection formed, the case stopped being about what was claimed and started being about what was proven. And what was proven didn't support the story, it dismantled it. And from that moment, everything shifted. Public perception didn't just change, it flipped. Comments, reactions, conversations, all pointing toward the same conclusion. Not because they were told to, but because the pieces now fit together in a way they hadn't before. What once looked like a fight for justice started to look like something else entirely. Something controlled, something selective, something that didn't align with reality. And when that realization spreads, it doesn't stay contained. It reaches everything. Partnerships, reputation, future opportunities, even personal relationships. Because trust, once broken at that level, doesn't rebuild easily. And every attempt to move forward now carries that shadow with it. But maybe the most haunting part of all of this isn't the loss or the money or even the isolation. It's the realization that it didn't have to end this way. That there were moments, clear, visible moments where a different choice could have changed everything. Where stepping back could have preserved what pushing forward ultimately destroyed.